The room that wasn't there. Lisa and Mark had finally found the perfect home. It was a beautiful, newly renovated house in a quiet suburb with enough space for them to start a family. The first few weeks after moving in were full of excitement as they settled into their new life, enjoying the spacious rooms, the fresh paint, and the feeling of a fresh start. But soon, strange things began to happen. It started with subtle noises, faint scratching sounds behind the walls that they dismissed as old pipes or settling floors. But the noises became more persistent, happening late at night when the house was supposed to be silent. The scratching sounds began to grow louder, as if something or someone was trying to claw its way out from behind the walls. One evening, Mark was moving some furniture in the guest room when he noticed a cold draft coming from what should have been a solid wall. Curious, he began tapping along the wall, discovering that it sounded hollow in one particular spot. After some investigation, he found a hidden door painted over and sealed shut. With some effort, he managed to pry it open, revealing a small, dark room that didn't appear in the house's floor plans. The air inside the hidden room was thick with dust, and a sense of dread immediately filled the space. In the center of the room sat an old, rotting wooden chair. The walls were covered in deep scratches, as though someone had desperately tried to claw their way out. On the floor lay a faded, crumpled piece of paper. With trembling hands, Lisa picked it up and read the chilling words, "She won't let us leave." After discovering the hidden room, the strange occurrences in the house escalated. Mark began waking up in the middle of the night, standing in the hallway with a blank stare, completely unaware of how he got there. Lisa would wake up to find bruises on her arms, as if someone had grabbed her in her sleep. She also started having vivid nightmares of being trapped in that hidden room, unable to escape. The final straw came when they both saw a shadowy figure standing in the corner of their bedroom one night. It was a dark silhouette with long, twisted fingers, and it watched them as they lay frozen in bed. The next morning, they packed their things and left the house, abandoning most of their belongings. They never returned. Whatever was trapped in that hidden room, they realized, had found a way to reach them. The cries in the night. Sarah and Jake were overjoyed when they moved into their new home, an old colonial house with beautiful architecture and a spacious yard. It was the perfect place to start their life together after getting married. The house had been recently restored, and its old-world charm made it feel unique and full of character. But beneath its inviting exterior lay a dark secret. A few weeks after moving in, Sarah began waking up in the middle of the night to the sound of a baby crying. The cries were faint at first, but they grew louder and more desperate as the nights went on. Jake didn't hear anything and reassured Sarah that it was probably just a neighbor's child. But deep down, she knew the sound was coming from within their own house. One particularly cold and quiet night, Sarah couldn't take it anymore. The crying was louder than ever, and she was certain it was coming from the basement. Gathering her courage, she grabbed a flashlight and headed down the creaking stairs. As she descended into the darkness, the cries grew fainter, replaced by an eerie silence. But when she reached the bottom of the stairs, she froze. In the corner of the basement was an old wooden cradle swaying back and forth, even though there was no breeze. There was no baby in sight. Disturbed, Sarah rushed back upstairs, but the strange events continued. The crying persisted, now sometimes accompanied by the sound of a woman whispering, her voice filled with sorrow. The whispers seemed to drift through the house, echoing in empty rooms. Sarah began seeing fleeting glimpses of a pale woman in a tattered dress, her hollow eyes staring at her from the shadows. Desperate for answers, Sarah began researching the history of the house. She discovered that decades earlier, a family had lived there. The mother had gone mad after her baby died under mysterious circumstances. Consumed by grief, she took her own life in the basement. It was said that her spirit never left the house, endlessly searching for her lost child. As the haunting intensified, Sarah's health began to decline. She couldn't sleep, and the constant fear wore her down. Jake finally started believing her after waking up one night to see the ghostly figure standing at the foot of their bed, staring at them with empty, mournful eyes. Unable to live in such terror, they decided to sell the house at a loss and move far away. They left, hoping to leave behind whatever restless spirits still lingered within those walls. The house that breathed. Tom and Emily were eager for a fresh start when they bought a newly built house in a rural area. The sleek, modern design and peaceful surroundings offered a stark contrast to the chaos of the city life they were leaving behind. The house was everything they had dreamed of, spacious, bright, and filled with the latest amenities. But soon after they moved in, they began noticing something strange. At night, the house seemed to breathe. It started as a faint sound, like a low, wheezing noise coming from the walls. Tom and Emily tried to convince themselves it was just the wind or the house settling, but the sound grew louder and more distinct as time went on. It was as if the house itself was alive, drawing in deep, labored breaths and exhaling with a chilling rasp. One night, as they lay in bed, the breathing sounds became impossible to ignore. It was no longer a vague noise, it was clear, deliberate, and coming from just outside their bedroom door. Tom got up to investigate, but every step he took seemed to be followed by the sound of another breath. It felt as though something was watching him, tracking his every move. The sound followed him down the hallway, growing closer with every passing second. The couple began experiencing more disturbing occurrences. Doors would swing open on their own, and lights flickered in time with the breathing. But the worst part was the oppressive feeling of being watched. It was as if the house had eyes, always observing, waiting for something. One night, Emily woke up gasping for air, feeling a crushing weight on her chest. She looked up and saw a shadowy figure looming over her. The shape was indistinct but undeniably menacing, and its breathing was heavy, matching the sound they had been hearing for weeks. Terrified, they started looking into the history of the land their home was built on. To their horror, they discovered that it had once been the site of a hospital cemetery. The developer had removed the graves without proper permits, disturbing the resting place of many who were buried there. Tom and Emily became convinced that the spirits of the dead had been awakened and were now bound to their home. Unable to bear living in a house that seemed to be alive with anger and resentment, they packed up and left within days. The house still stands, a beautiful structure on the outside, but no one stays for long. Those who move in always report the same unsettling sounds, the house breathing, as though something is still trapped inside, desperate to escape.